In the annals of criminal history, some names send shivers down our spines. These are the names that haunt our collective memory. Names that are synonymous with terror and brutality. Names that forever evoke images of unspeakable acts and the darkest corners of the human psyche. They remind us of the fragility of our safety and the depths of human depravity. Alexander Pichushkin, the Chessboard Killer, is one such name. A man whose very existence seemed to be a testament to the evil that can lurk within the human soul. His chilling ambition? To commit 64 murders, one for each square on a chessboard. This macabre goal was not just a number, but a symbol of his twisted mind. Pichushkin terrorized Moscow, preying on the vulnerable and leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. His reign of terror cast a long, dark shadow over the city. His weapon of choice was often a hammer, a brutal and up-close instrument of death. Each strike was a calculated move in his deadly game, but it was the methodical nature of his crimes, the chilling symbolism of the chessboard, that truly set him apart. Each murder was a piece in his gruesome puzzle. This is the story of a city held captive by fear, a relentless killer driven by a twisted compulsion, and the investigators who worked tirelessly to stop him. The hunt for Pichushkin was a race against time, a desperate bid to end the nightmare. It's a story that delves into the depths of human depravity, leaving us with more questions than answers. What drives a person to such extremes? Can we ever truly understand the mind of a killer? Bitsa Park, a sprawling green expanse on the outskirts of Moscow, was a place where people went to escape the city's hustle and bustle. But on a summer day in 2001, it became the scene of a horrific discovery. The body of Nikolai Vorobyov, an elderly man, was found floating in a pond. At first glance it appeared to be a tragic accident, perhaps a drunken fall, but a closer inspection by the authorities revealed a horrifying truth. Vorobyov had been brutally murdered, his skull crushed with a blunt object. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Who could commit such a heinous act in broad daylight? Little did they know, it was just the beginning of a nightmare. As months turned into years, more bodies began to surface around Bitsa Park. The victims were mostly men, many of them elderly or homeless, lured to the park with promises of vodka and companionship. Their killer, however, had a much more sinister plan in store. The murders were shocking in their brutality. The victims were often bludgeoned to death, their skulls crushed beyond recognition. But there was a chilling detail that linked many of the crimes. Empty vodka bottles were often found shoved into the gaping wounds in the victims' skulls. The city of Moscow was gripped by fear. The killer, dubbed the Bitsa maniac by the media, seemed unstoppable. Parents were afraid to let their children out of their sight, and the elderly avoided the park altogether. The once tranquil haven had become a hunting ground. As the body count rose, so did the pressure on the police to catch the killer. The investigation was hampered by a lack of witnesses, and the fact that the killer seemed to select victims on the fringes of society, people who wouldn't necessarily be missed. There were false leads aplenty. A local dog walker with a history of mental illness was questioned and released. A group of teenagers known for petty theft and vandalism became prime suspects, but they were eventually cleared. The killer, it seemed, was always one step ahead. The investigation dragged on, and the murders continued. The Bitsa maniac had become a ghost, a terrifying enigma that haunted the city's collective consciousness. Section 5. Marina's story. Marina Moskaleva was a young woman who worked as a cashier at a local grocery store. She was known for her friendly demeanor and her dedication to her job. Every day she would greet customers with a warm smile, making their shopping experience a little brighter. She knew some of the victims, men who would frequent the park. These were men she had seen almost daily, exchanging pleasantries and sometimes even sharing small talk about the weather or the latest news. She was aware of the dangers, but she never imagined that she would come face to face with the monster who was terrorizing her city. The thought of such an encounter was something that only existed in her worst nightmares. One evening, as Marina was walking home from work, she was approached by a man who seemed friendly enough. He had a kind smile and a reassuring voice which made her feel at ease, if only for a moment. He offered to walk her home, claiming that it was too dangerous for a young woman to be out alone at night. Marina, initially hesitant, agreed. She thought it was a kind gesture, and perhaps he was genuinely concerned for her safety. However, as they walked, Marina noticed something strange about the man's demeanor. His friendly facade began to crack, revealing a more sinister side. He kept looking over his shoulder, his eyes darting nervously. It was as if he was expecting someone to follow them, or perhaps he was hiding something. When she asked him if anything was wrong, he just smiled and shook his head. But the smile didn't reach his eyes, and Marina felt a chill run down her spine. Marina's instincts told her something was terribly wrong. She had always trusted her gut feelings, and this time was no different. Her mind raced as she tried to think of a way to get out of the situation. She made an excuse to stop at a nearby shop and then quickly ducked into a crowded restaurant, her heart pounding in her chest. The noise and the people provided a sense of safety, a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the streets. She had narrowly escaped a terrible fate. As she looked over her shoulder, she saw the man standing outside, his expression dark and unreadable. Marina knew she had made the right decision, and she vowed to always trust her instincts from that day forward. Section 6. Captured, the game unravels. Marina's encounter with the Bitsevsky maniac, although terrifying, would prove to be a turning point in the investigation. She was able to provide the police with a detailed description of the man who had approached her, and more importantly, she remembered seeing him drop a train ticket. That train ticket would become the crucial piece of evidence that would finally break the case. Police were able to trace the ticket back to Alexander Pichushkin, a quiet, unassuming man who worked at a local supermarket. When police searched Pichushkin's apartment, they discovered a gruesome collection of trophies from his victims, as well as a chessboard with a chilling number of squares marked or covered. Pichushkin had been keeping track of his murders, one square for each victim. Section 7. The Trial of Alexander Pichushkin. The trial of Alexander Pichushkin was a media sensation, drawing attention from not just Russia, but from around the globe. The courthouse was surrounded by a sea of reporters, all eager to cover every detail of the proceedings. Cameras from around the world flocked to Moscow to capture the proceedings, eager to get a glimpse of the man who had terrorized the city for so long. The media frenzy was unprecedented, with news outlets providing live updates and in-depth analyses. Pichushkin, for his part, seemed to relish the attention. He often appeared confident, almost smug, as he faced the court. His demeanor was chilling, as if he was proud of the notoriety he had gained. He appeared calm and collected in court, even smirking at times, showing little remorse for his horrific crimes. His lack of emotion was unsettling to many, especially the families of the victims who were present. He confessed to killing 61 people, although he was only charged with 48 murders and 3 attempted murders due to lack of sufficient evidence. His confessions were detailed and horrifying, painting a picture of a man who had no regard for human life. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against Pichushkin, including DNA evidence, eyewitness testimony, and his own chilling confession. The evidence was overwhelming, leaving little doubt about his guilt. The jury deliberated for only a short time before returning with a guilty verdict. Their decision was swift, reflecting the strength of the evidence and the gravity of Pichushkin's crimes. Alexander Pichushkin was sentenced to life in prison, with the first 15 years to be served in solitary confinement. The sentence was meant to reflect the severity of his actions and to ensure he would never harm anyone again. Justice had been served, but the scars of his crimes would remain forever etched in the hearts of the families of his victims and the city he terrorized. The trial brought some closure, but the pain and loss endured by the community would never be forgotten. Section 8. A Nation's Nightmare, a Killer's Legacy. The case of Alexander Pichushkin, the chessboard killer, sent shockwaves throughout Russia and beyond. It was a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Forensic psychologists and criminologists have spent years studying Pichushkin's case, trying to understand what drove him to commit such heinous acts. Some believe that he was driven by a desire for power and control, that each murder was a way for him to exert his dominance over his victims. Others speculate that he was motivated by a deep-seated hatred of humanity, that he derived a perverse pleasure from taking the lives of others. Whatever his motivations, there is no doubt that Alexander Pichushkin was a deeply disturbed individual capable of unimaginable cruelty. Section 9. A Final Thought, a Lingering Question. The case of the chessboard killer is a chilling reminder that monsters do exist hiding in plain sight. It's a story that forces us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature and to question our own understanding of good and evil. As we reflect on the horrific crimes of Alexander Pichushkin, we are left with a lingering question. Was he driven by madness, a product of a broken mind? Or was he a calculating narcissist playing a deadly game with the lives of innocent people? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. Perhaps it's a question that will never be fully answered. But it's a question that continues to haunt us, a reminder of the enduring power of evil in our world. What do you think?